Just a few months ago, Citizen threw their hat into the integrated sports watch market with the release of the Tsuyosa. On paper, this piece looks like incredible value for money, but if we dig a bit deeper, how does it hold up against the competition? Today, we'll be taking a closer look at the Citizen Tsuyosa, seeing how it stacks up against the Tissot PRX, and answering the very important question, should this Citizen be your next sports watch? Let's get into it. The Citizen Tsuyosa was actually first released in July 2022. However, it was only available in the Asian market, so although enthusiasts knew of the model, it was difficult to get hold of. However, in May 2023, that's all changed. Citizen, almost a year later, finally released the watch to Western markets, which started the wave of hype around this model. The Tsuyosa was originally released in just 5 colours: a standard black dial, a navy blue, a baby blue, aka Tiffany blue, a green version, and a mustardy yellow. Of course, the biggest hype formed around the Tiffany version, with the craze of the Tiffany Nautilus and baby blue Oyster Perpetual helped propel anything that resembled the famous colour. At first, it just looked like another cash grab, because so many brands have entered the integrated sports watch market over the past couple of years, with it being the new trend of watch style, but most of them are bang average and don't really offer anything special. On paper though, this Citizen is slightly different. This piece can be picked up for around $300, which is the same price as a quartz Tissot PRX. However, the Tsuyosa comes with an automatic movement, which of course enthusiasts go crazy for. But the question is, do the specs on the Citizen Tsuyosa even come close to the specs of the Tissot PRX? Well, the Tsuyosa comes with a full stainless steel construction, which is what you'd expect for a $300 watch. But I think the real comparison comes when looking at the finishing of each piece, which we'll cover a little later in the video. The Citizen comes with a flat sapphire crystal, with a Cyclops at the 3 o'clock. I've tested the Cyclops on my diamond tester and I can confirm that the Cyclops glass is also sapphire, so big thumbs up from me for this one. The PRX also has a flat sapphire, however it doesn't feature a Cyclops. I'm sure many of you prefer watches without a Cyclops as it can throw off the symmetry of the dial. I too am probably in this boat, but it does the job of magnifying the date, and I feel like this design decision was made to make it look even more like a Rolex, combined with all the other design cues. But we'll also cover this a little later in the video, so stay tuned. The Tsuyosa does only come with 50 meters of water resistance, where the PRX comes with 100 meters, which is a much better fit for this style of watch. The 50 meters of the Citizen is technically swim-proof, but of course, more is always better. I think the biggest selling point of this piece is the choice of movement, with the Citizen using the in-house Miyota 8210. This is a 21,600 vibrations per hour automatic movement that has a power reserve of 40 hours. The movement is gold in colour, which does add a punch to the visuals, and it is certainly a better looking movement than your standard undecorated Miyota movement. I think the biggest talking point comes with the price of the watches, with this automatic Citizen only costing $300, but the automatic PRX costing $700. Now, some will argue that the Powermatic 80 inside the PRX is far superior to that inside of the Citizen, which on paper, yes it is, but the PRX does come with some servicing downsides, as the PRX does feature some plastic components that really have to be serviced at Tissot, and they'll likely just replace the whole movement and ship it back to you, where any local watchmaker could easily service the movement inside the Tsuyosa and parts are readily available. But if you compare the Citizen against the quartz PRX, which cost around the same price, the Citizen then becomes superior, at least in the eyes of mechanical enthusiasts. My PRX was actually quartz. I didn't see the value in paying double for the automatic, when both are visually the same and I don't mind a quartz piece. So spec for spec, the Citizen more than holds its own against the PRX, with the water resistance being the biggest difference between the two. So on paper, both watches are very close in terms of specifications and materials. But now let's take a look at the finishing of each piece and how they stack up against one another. One of the biggest selling points of the PRX is the finishing of the case and bracelet. Tissot does a fantastic job of really making the PRX punch above its weight in this category. The flat bracelet links of the PRX allow for some incredible wrist rolls, as I'm sure you've all seen on Instagram, with polished sections adding a bit of glare and flash. So how does the Citizen stack up against it? Well, the finishing on the Tsuyosa is good, with a combination of brushed and polished surfaces. There is also a polished chamfered edge to the case, which does add a nice dimension. The bracelet is the biggest difference here though, with the Citizen opting for a presidential style bracelet over the Tissot's more Royal Oak style. style. The Tsuyosa features a polished center link, with the outer links being vertically brushed. I do think that this is the section where the Citizen gets beaten, quite easily in fact. I think that the finishing on the PRX is far superior to that on the Tsuyosa. That doesn't mean that the Citizen looks bad though, it just can't compete with the pizzazz of the PRX, although a wrist roll on the Tsuyosa is still aesthetically pleasing. But there is one place where I feel that this Citizen beats the PRX, and quite easily too, and this one is a big factor for me. The reason I sold my PRX was because of the wearing experience. Even though the case is 40mm, it actually wears much larger. That's because of the first link of the bracelet extends the lug to lug over 50mm, so it left a bit of a gap when on the wrist and made the PRX feel a bit top heavy. The Tsuyosa avoids this problem. Although both watches share the same 40mm case diameter, the lug to lug of the Tsuyosa comes in at under 50mm, which is crucial for a smaller wrist like mine. But that's not even the most important part. The Citizen comes with a traditional clasp with micro adjustment, which means you're almost guaranteed to find a good fit. But the PRX comes with a butterfly clasp, which is one of my least favourite inventions in this whole watch collecting hobby. Even with the half links that Tissot provides, it is much more difficult to find a good fit with the 40mm PRX. At least it was for me. So in my opinion, the Tsuyosa wears much better than the PRX. The combination of the shorter lug to lug and the micro adjustment means that the wearing experience is much more enjoyable. Now, a lot of people are calling the Tsuyosa a homage watch, which I can see why people are saying that, but I feel like people give way too much credit to the design of the PRX, acting like it's totally original. Yes, the design of the Citizen is very heavily influenced by various Rolex models. This is mainly confirmed by the dial layout, with simple stick markers and hands that very much resemble the Rolex Oyster Perpetual, with the double markers at the 12 and the 6, which is similar to what we see on the popular Rolex. The bracelet too is also a popular Rolex design, mainly found on the day-date models, but there is no Rolex model that looks the exact same as the Citizen. Instead, it's a bit of a mashup of many different design cues, especially with the integrated bracelet. It has enough credibility to not be considered a clomage, but I do feel like some overhype the design of the PRX, with some considering it a original design, but it's a re-edition of a vintage Tissot from the 70s. But let's not kid ourselves here, that original C-Star was a homage to the sports watches of the time, including the Royal Oak and Nautilus. So yes, it is cool that the PRX has a direct link to the birth years of the integrated bracelet watches, but let's not pretend that Tissot created this style of watch. They simply adapted to the trend of the time, using design cues from what was popular. The same can be said for this Citizen in the modern day. Overall, I say that the design of the PRX deserves more credibility, but let's not go crazy and claim that it's not heavily influenced by other watches. Before we get into whether I think you should buy this watch or not, and whether I recommend it over the PRX, let me take you through a few pros and cons of the Citizen Tsuyosa. Firstly, cons. The clasp on the Tsuyosa is only pressed, which is thin and comfortable, but it's far from a premium experience. The movement inside the Citizen does feature hand winding, but with the crown being recessed at the 4 o'clock, it's incredibly difficult to wind. As mentioned earlier, 50 meters on a sports watch is a little low. I'd have been much happier if it was 100 meters. I'd have also liked to see an applied Citizen logo on the dial, which would have added a nice detail and an extra bit of flash. And the Cyclops is an acquired taste, and unfortunately not a taste of mine. But the pros outweigh the cons with this piece. The bracelet and clasp is incredibly comfortable and conforms to the wrist nicely. My auto movements can sometimes be super loud. I'm pleased to say that this one is fairly quiet and gets on with the job without any fuss. But the main pro of this watch is the value that it offers. This is an integrated sports watch with an automatic movement by a big brand for only $300, which is a bit of an anomaly. There isn't much competition for this watch. So the question is this Citizen really a Tissot PRX killer? Should you be buying this watch over a PRX? It really comes down to a few things. How much value do you put into that Swiss-made stamp and Tissot as a brand? Because let's be honest, Tissot has more credibility to not only this style of watch, but also more brand recognition as a higher-end watchmaker. Even though Citizen has broken countless records throughout their lifespan and achieved incredible feats, Tissot holds that little bit more respect. When breaking the automatic versions down piece for piece, yes, I still think that the PRX is a better watch, but it should be, costing double the price. But when comparing the Tsuyosa with the quartz PRX, for me the Citizen wins. Yes, the PRX has the upper hand in the finishing department, but the Citizen has an automatic movement and has a better wearing experience. So it comes down to what you want. Do you want the hype watch that is the PRX, with that instant Swiss-made recognition and respect, or do you want pure value for money from a Japanese watchmaker? My pick would probably be the 35mm PRX. I like this Citizen a lot, don't get me wrong, but I just think that the 35mm PRX offers that little bit more slickness. But if it's a question of the 40mm PRX or Tsuyosa, it's the Tsuyosa for me. It's a complicated ending, I know, but isn't this whole hobby? But what do you think? What would your choice be of the two watches? Let me know down in the comments. And I've just added a couple of beautiful affordable dress pieces to the toptierticker.com watch shop, so go and check it out for some cool pre-owned watches. The link is in the description. If you liked this video and want to learn more about the Tissot PRX, be sure to watch my video here on screen where I talk about why I sold my Tissot PRX.